And we are live. Greetings, everyone. Sorry, we're late. It's my technical screw up apparently, but we finally got everybody in the right room. And so I'm gonna pull up the notes, zero out the timer, and we're gonna rock and roll with Jedi here. So let's see. So do that, and we are off to the races.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit, on the tanker, through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond.
So there I was, flying an F4 into Pensacola one Friday evening with the wind blowing and the rain howling, and land on the runway, 8,000 feet. Had to get a PAR to go in there. I was taking my backseater to Pensacola so he could attend a officer graduation for his nephew. And so we land, 8,000 foot runway. Like I said, Air Force guys normally used to land on 10,000 feet. So, but even though the runway was wet and it was like a 15 to 20 knot crosswind, not a problem. Stopped by the end, taxied off. And as I taxied off, ground said, "Hey, whatever my call sign was, how was the braking action?" I said, "If I can stop an F4 and 8,000 feet on this without a cable, it must be pretty good." That was it. So I take the jet to transient parking, park it. I send the backseater off so he can do his Friday night festivities with his family, and close the canopies, get my bag. So I go into base ops, check in with my operations at home, tell them I'm safe and sound in Pensacola, and I look for the nearest bar, which is kind of across the street at the Pensacola Officers Club. Now here I am thinking I'm in Pensacola, Florida. I'm an Air Force dude flying an F4. The chicks are going to dig me. Bar's probably going to be crowded with a lot of available targets. And with excitement, I walk into this casual bar at the Pensacola O Club, and there were like exactly 7 people in there. And I think 6 of the 7 were retirees.
It was hopping that night.
Nobody was impressed with my arrival. And I'm carrying bags with me, so I'm like, shit. So I walk up to the bar, drop my bags, and the bartender, he's so busy because he's got 7 people in there. He's like, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, where's everybody?" He goes, "This is it." So I'm like, "Oh shit." So he said, "If you want some action, you need to go downtown or wherever." It's the first time I'd ever been to Pensacola in my life. I was a first lieutenant. I was a brand new instructor in the F4. So anyway, now I was totally debilitated, and I said, I think I need a rum and coke to soothe my spirits. And so I'm sitting at the bar. I've probably had one rum and coke. And by the way, what I should have said is when I was tying the airplane down and putting it to bed, I heard the faint sound of another jet engine. It sounded like the guy had landed. So I sit at the bar talking to the bartender, and he's telling me, he goes, "You're mistaken if you think this is a hoppin' O Club on Friday night. It's generally not." So now I'm trying to think, what is my plan B? And just as I was deep in thought, I heard this booming voice. I mean, it was like just this booming voice, and it was like, "Where's the fucking F4 pilot?" And I'm like, well, that's probably me. And I'm like looking at my arms thinking, maybe I should rip this F4 patch off it because that doesn't sound like a very friendly voice.
Oh, no.
And I kind of turn around look over my shoulder, and it's like this quintessential Marine. He was built like a brick shit house, barrel chested. He's probably about 5'6", crew cut, flat top, blonde hair. So I turn back around and I look at the bartender, and the bartender goes, "I think he's talking about you." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit." So I am like trying to go low vis. I pull my arms in front of me, and I'm just kind of hunkering down at the bar. And the bartender goes, he's kind of coming this way. And I said, "Hey, give me bullseye information," as he walks up. So he goes, "Well, he's about 40 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet. And now I could feel this guy's presence, his aura. And I am like looking straight at the bar, down to the glasses and stuff, trying to like pretend that I don't see or hear anybody or anything. I'm just sipping my rum and coke. And I can just feel this dude's presence. And he actually went to the right side of me, and he leaned over the bar so I could not avoid him out of my peripheral vision. And I kind of like looked to the right, and I said, "Yeah, I flew an F4 in here." And he goes, "Did you tell ground that the braking action was good?" "Well, yes, sir." He said, "Son," and he walks over, he puts his left hand on my shoulder. He goes, "I almost went off the runway in an A4 because I landed on a wet runway with a 15 to 20 knot crosswind, and I had to take a midfield cable to keep from going off the runway. So the next time you land at a Marine or a Navy base and you got a crosswind and a wet runway, what are you going to tell them for braking action?" "It's poor." And he looks at me, he goes, "Learning has occurred." And he turned around and walked out. So that was, you would think that would be the end of the story. However, there's like 6 degrees of separation here. Fast forward probably, oh my God, 30 years, something like that. I am actually an airline pilot. I am in London, in Cambridge, actually Stansted Airport, getting ready to do a turn. I just flown in from Dublin and was going to Paris. I was flying a 767 at the time, kind of in the twilight of my airline career. My son, who was going through F-18, the RAG at the time at Miramar, he said, "You are not going to believe what happened to me today." And I'm like, this is the amazing thing about having cell phones and texting and all that. So he actually called me, and I said, "Yeah, what's going on?" He goes, "Well, remember I told you I was getting a sim ride from this retired Navy Marine guy who everybody said is a complete and utter asshole and fails like 50% of the students that he gives check rides to?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, before I went in the sim, you said to me, 'Kyle, break the ice. Just kind of talk to the guy before you get into the meat of the brief and just get to know him, find out what he flew in the Marines, blah, blah, blah.'" So Kyle says, "I took your advice." I was talking to the guy and I said, "Oh, you've been around. Would you fly in the Marines and all that?" And he goes, "I flew A4s and F4s." And Kyle said, I don't know what possessed me to say this, but I said, "Hey, did you ever go into Pensacola in an A4 or whatever?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, a bunch of times." He goes, "Yeah, my dad went in there one time, told me about some Marine guy that yelled at him for braking action." And this guy, his eyes got really big. He goes, "That was me."
Holy shit. What a small
It's
world.
like, the guy is like, "Holy shit, that was your old man?" Kyle's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, it's nice to see that you wised up and joined the Marines and not the fucking Air Force." So that was my that was like a 6 degrees of separation. I still look at that and laugh.
That is great.
That's some funny
Fantastic.
shit. That's small world shit right there.
Yeah. Well, aviation is a small community. Greetings, everyone. You're listening to the podcast. So there I was, repeat here at home in New Hampshire for a few more days. Well, no, a few more hours before I blast off on vacation, I hope. At least that's the plan. How about my co-host?
I
Fred, where art thou?
am in God's country, Kearney, Missouri, for a few more hours, and it is our distinct pleasure to welcome Jedi to So There I Was.
It is indeed.
Welcome,
Go all the way
sir.
back to show 22 if you want to hear more from Jedi, but he's done more cool shit since last we spoke, and is now a Fed. Among other things. Let's back up a little bit. So you got into aviation. Your dad was an aviator. He was a Fed, right?
He was 36 years.
Yeah. Okay. So your dad was a Fed. You got into aviation, obviously, through the family tree, as it were, and had good guidance to get into the Air National Guard. What a great way to go. If kids, check with your parents, but I'm telling you,
That's right.
it's a way to fly airplanes.
Who knew? For crying out loud.
Yeah. So if you'd recap for us quickly how you got into the Guard and overview of your career, and then let's get into some flying stories, man.
Real quick. Yeah, my dad was World War II pilot and then got out of the war, flew in the airlines from 46 to 58. Airline went out of business, pilot strike. And then flew 2 years corporate, and then he got in the FAA, but he was not like a Fed like what I do now as an ASI. He was a flight ops test pilot. So he flew all of his career at the FAA. So he had a pretty cool career. But yeah, when I was 15, he taught me to start flying, commercial pilot, private pilot license, instrument commercial. I was towing banners 4 years down the Jersey Shore. Had a neighbor. I was going to go to I was going to go into the airlines out of trying to do the civilian route. My neighbor was a F-105 guard pilot in Atlantic City, and Bob Grace, great guy, flew P-51s World War II. He said, Roger, don't go in the airlines right away. He said, you got to go in the Guard. So Atlantic City had 106s at the time. McGuire had F4s. Couldn't get in the 106. They didn't have any slots, so I got in the F4 in the Guard. Went through pilot training, all that crap that you do, which is same as the Air Force. Then I went through F4 RTU at Kansas. I had the really best experience, I think, because when I finished F4 training in Kansas, the Guard unit there, which was the main Guard unit that trained F4 pilots for Guard Reserve, they had like 72 F4s at the time. They said, hey, would you like to be an instructor in the F4? And it's an AGR job, active duty Guard Reserve orders. And I said, can I do that? And they said, yeah, we'll get a waiver for you. So anyway, they got a waiver. So I became an instructor with about 200 hours in the F4. And then I went to the weapons school, became an instructor there. Then I went in the airlines, went to the F-16, and retired a couple of years ago from the airlines. And that's pretty much my flying career.
Yeah. And a prolific author with a great Substack. We'll put the link to his Substack in the show notes for this episode. So there I was.us /episode/184 is what I believe this one's going to be. And some great stuff. I got to say, Jedi, the raw honesty and human emotion that you bring to your writing is it's compelling. It's good reading, folks. Well worth going to look at. So.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, well, since last we chatted, you have retired. Let's talk a little bit about the airline. So you were when I first met you. In fact, you gave me my type ride in the MD-11, and
No way.
and then gave me. Let's see. I think you were off the MD-11 by the time I went to captain. Yeah, you didn't give me my captain upgrade on that, but did that, and then and I actually now I remember not only giving me my typewriter, you were supposed to give me the ride, but there was another gent who was supposed to give me the oral, and you got thrown into giving me the oral the day before the check ride. I love this story because the check airman that was going to give me the oral had the stones to fail the standards check airman, the head of standards at the airline.
Wow.
On his check ride. Yeah.
Okay.
Who was that? Do you remember?
Yes, he had an Asian name.
Oh, oh my God, I remember that.
Ah,
His, so there's a button in the MD-11 glare shield called Prof, which is short for profile. And if you don't understand Prof, it can kill you. And that was that everyone used to imitate the man.
Yeah.
Touch Prof. You don't know shit about Prof. Touch Prof.
Oh God, I remember that. Boy, that raised a ruckus in the because I was an APD at the time, and yeah, when he failed him, it was like holy shit,
Yeah, right.
you just yeah, that was funny. Actually, he gave me my that guy we're talking about, the
Yeah.
foreign name guy. He gave me when I went to the 777. It was like kind of shortly after, or somewhere near that time. When I went to the 777, he was my support for my type rating ride,
Oh, okay.
and he he said, "Hey, I got the gouge. You know, you Marine Navy guys, I got the gouge." I'm like, "Okay, you got
Right.
the gouge." Because we were still brand new. I think I was the second cadre coming in on the 777. So
Okay.
we weren't even doing revenue service. That didn't start for
Yeah.
another 9 months.
Yeah. How do you
But
start this thing?
yeah.
yeah.
So
Where do you
we're
stick
doing
the
the
key?
type rating ride, and we're going from it was San Francisco to ostensibly to Ontario. And even though I knew all the guys and I studied the material, you still have a little bit of nerves in there. You want to do well. You
Yeah.
always want to excel.
Yeah, you want to
And
stay a little
and this
nervous.
guy is like my seat support. This foreign guy. I got the gouge. I got the gouge. Don't worry. I got the gouge. I'm like, okay, you got the gouge. So we're coming in, and there's supposed to be an emergency as you approach, as you're on the arrival, and they also give you a hold. So we got this emergency, and I'm like looking at the ICAS, what it is. And he immediately already has the book out, the quick reference handbook for emergencies, what a QRH.
Yeah.
And he starts reading off the steps. And I'm like, this is not what are you doing at this? I don't think this is our emergency. He goes, no, it's the emergency. I know the emergency. I said,
Because
I'm
it's
gonna
the
just say his
gouge.
first name. It is not the emergency. Look at the ICAS. Look at what we have. And then I shit you not. He looks back at the guy giving me the evaluation. He goes, "You changed the profile. You changed the profile."
Oh my gosh.
And he goes, "Yeah, we changed it last night." So anyway, I passed the ride. It wasn't a big deal. We get in. So we're debriefing, and the instructor, the evaluator, said to me, he goes, "So, what do you got any notes about anything with your the flying and CRM or anything?" I said, "Yeah, I think the first officer needs to take English lessons."
Oh, that went over
And
like a
he
fart in church.
was pissed off. So, and then what's funny is I wound up giving him IOE on the 777 about like a year later, and that was a very interesting IOE. So
Funny. No
anyway,
kidding.
but
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, yeah.
yeah,
All right. So you did the MD-11 check airman thing for a long time. You did the 777 and you did the check airman thing on that. And then, but you retired from the 76.
yeah,
Why'd you do that?
I'll tell you, the thing was, I started flying international in 1990 on that DC-10. My first trip actually was to Frankfurt in that, and I was a plumber then, not in the right seat. But in '93, I went to the MD-11, and I was based up in Anchorage. Flew the MD-11 16 years, and like you said, I was a flex instructor, then I was a line check airman, then I was a standards guy, and so that was fun. All those years were fun. I did a duty officer thing concurrent with being a standards guy. And I just, I wanted to go to the triple. So I went to the triple. And I don't know if you remember, Kirk Williams was at the time, he was the fleet manager guy on
Right.
that.
Right.
So he's like, "Hey, me and a couple others guys who were on the 11, he goes, I'd really like you to come to the triple." And we did. And I love the airplane. I still think it's the greatest jet big jet, I ever flew.
Yeah, I love it. Like a big Cessna 172
Yeah,
as
Love
far
it.
as it's,
seriously.
yeah.
Love the
People just
777.
can't imagine how easy that airplane is to fly, honestly.
Yep.
Um,
Concur. 100%.
so I'm flying. The problem I had, every fucking flight on that airplane was with a student. And I was on it 9 years, and every flight was around the world trip.
Oh man.
I got to the point where it was like jet lag. If I was off for 2 weeks in a row, I think I slept maybe 4 hours a night at home before I woke up ready to go fly a trip in my house. So I got tired of flying with students, and yeah, I could have quit as a line check airman and done that, but I was tired of the round the world jet lag thing. So I thought, the 7.6 at the time was flying all intra-European. I was senior enough that I could hold those lines. So I did. I bid off the the 777, went to the 7.6. Now, when I got on the 7.6 for the bid, they said, you won't go fly the 7.5. We're making the 7.6 exclusive. But at that point, they didn't. So I actually had to go through training on the 7.5, and I did intermix flying on the 7.6, 7.5 for probably about 6 months. I only got 100 hours on the 7.5, and then everything else was 7.6 for like 5 years, and it was mostly all intra-European. Honestly, that was probably some of the best flying, if not the best I did at FedEx, only because I didn't have to teach a first. Well, you know how it is when you're flying with a first officer, even if he's checked out. You got to give them teaching points because some of them, they're clueless in some areas. I don't mean that like all you first officers are clueless, so don't go right.
Sure. Yeah. Backpedal now. Whoops.
There's definitely a difference between the crews on the 777 and the 7.6 FOs, and I will throw this out there to the detriment of maybe the email coming to you guys, but man, there were some really entitled FOs flying that airplane that we had some serious discussions about picking up the mic and saying, I want to go direct here or direct there without asking the captain if you can do that. Stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And weather.
You're just a grumpy old man there, Jedi.
Yeah.
I actually, so it was one similar to that, and it was that, and that was still enforced early on. I was in the right seat of the MD-11 one morning, about, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the morning. Sun had just come up. We were way up over northern Canada, heading or over north and into Canada, headed up to Anchorage, and it was one of those mornings where there's nobody in within 100 miles of you, and then it turns out there's a jet coming the other way, 1,000 feet above, and you can see the sun coming off his contrail. And again, we're 40, 50 miles away, and ATC calls out traffic, and I go in sight. That captain chewed my ass for 90 seconds. He's talking to me. He's not talking to you. I'm like, whoa, okay, well. Now that was in a case of an extreme, but it's like, dude, it's right there. You can see it too, and I know you can. And if you can't, then maybe you shouldn't be flying airplanes. But you gotta respect whose airplane it is.
Hey,
I don't think I was an asshole like that. But
No, I don't. I'm just giving you grief there about that. But yeah,
before we get too far downrange,
yeah,
back up about 7-8 minutes ago, Jedi just let this thing flow off, and nobody said a word because we know what he's talking about. But there may be somebody out there like, what the fuck? So Jedi, would you explain what a plumber is?
Oh yeah. Second officer, basically back when we had 3 crew airplanes, there's a captain, first officer, and the plumber was the guy who sat sideways. And I think we used to call them heat light manipulators or something like that.
Yeah, some people call them navigators. Flight engineers is the official term for the FAA, right?
Yeah.
It was an easy job, actually.
Paid deadhead between pre-flights.
Yeah, pretty much.
And everybody just called him a plumber. And, nothing to do with actual plumbing pipe
Well, hydraulic
fitting,
plumbing.
none. Yeah, it had everything to do with flight
Yeah.
engineer stuff.
And if the
Throwing
crapper
switches.
stopped up, it probably fell on the engineer to go.
Oh, you know, there's stories about that,
Oh,
like
let's do it. All right.
oh God, the second officer on a 7-2. You remember how cramped the toilet was on that?
Yeah.
So I was flying with this guy one time, and he said, "Yeah," he goes, "I had a horrible experience one day. We had some rather rotund jump seaters on the 7-2, and the jump seaters on the 7-2, they sat in the cockpit.
Right.
And this is back when everybody that was at FedEx could jump seat. So
Yeah.
this,
Couriers.
yeah,
yeah.
secretaries. I mean,
Yeah.
you name it. If you worked at FedEx and had an ID, you could jump seat as long as you took
Tom
the
Hanks.
test.
Tom
Yeah.
Hanks was jump
Yeah.
seating.
That's right. In fact, he got to drink wine, as I recall.
Yeah. He didn't get fired for it either.
Yeah, weird.
So anyway, he was saying, yeah, he goes, a couple of months ago, I had this rather rotund jump seater. She went in the back to go to the bathroom, and he's like, I kind of forgot about her, and we all did. And then I hear this banging because the engineer on the 7-2 faced sideways. Well, the toilet was just beyond the wall next to him, so I heard this banging and yelling. So he opens the door and goes back there. Well, evidently she was stuck on the toilet because the side where the sink was and the toilet wall, she couldn't get up. And here she is, her pants are down around her ankles. And he's like, oh shit. And she's like, you gotta help me up. I can't get up. So she hands him her arms, and he pulls her up, and he looked at her and he said, "You must swear to God you will never tell a human soul about this." Oh God, I thought that
He doesn't want to either.
No, that was funny.
Oh man.
But God, what I was going to say about that FO, the 7.6 I never had. We were flying actually we were going Memphis to Vegas, and it was an afternoon departure. And funny enough, we just got struck by lightning on takeoff and lost the left generator. So as we're climbing out,
that's good time.
He was flying. I was coordinating with GOC to see if they wanted the airplane back or to continue, because you can press on with one generator. You had to start the APU. At some point, we're cruise altitude, and FO picks up the mic and says, "Hey, center, how about giving us a direct to this point?"
Oh.
And center says, that's approved. And he puts it, and then he jumps in the FMS and puts it in. I looked at him. I was in total shock.
Hold on. This is the single seat version of the 767 now?
Yeah.
Asking for a friend.
Yeah. Why not?
And I looked at him.
How'd that go over?
And I swear to God, you ask my kids, I'm laid back. I don't know.
No, yeah, look, let me tell you, Jedi was one of the most sought after, easygoing, standards check airmen to fly with. Because you know what? When you screwed up, he was blunt. This is what you did wrong. Here's how you need to fix it. And when you weren't screwing up, he was passing good information and fun to fly with. So that's the best I can,
I tried to take after my old man and the way he taught me, being laid back, but yet know your shit. So anyway, I looked at this FO and I said, I have a real problem with what you just did. And this guy looked at me like I had, told him to fuck off. And I said, this is a crew concept airplane. We don't teach CRM just as a notional idea that it's there just to teach it. You might want to, since I'm signing for the jet, you might want to say, hey, Raj, how about, do you mind going direct somewhere? I would have gladly said, wherever you want to go, little puppy, pat you on the back and you do what you want to do, but make it a crew airplane. Don't just sit there, pick up the mic and do that, because that really pissed me off.
Yeah. And then type it in,
There was no
type it in. Hey, how's this look? Nothing, right? Just hit it and off you go. Oh boy,
man,
well,
that
hopefully
was
learned something from that.
So that was the last time I didn't. He might have put me on a no-fly list. I don't know, but I never flew with him again.
Funny. I actually
it's
got one
fun.
other quick one along those lines. Right after you remember they started the you will descend at 290 knots but in the days when I first got the FedEx, it was as fast as your little throttles would
Yeah,
carry you into 10,000 feet and then
yeah.
slow to 250. I mean, so you're coming out of the sky at 350, 360, right up against the barber pole. And so they came out and said for spacing and continuity, and so ATC can get this together, everybody descends at 290. Like, okay. So like 2 or 3 days after this, he was at C1 Air Force, or not Air Force, Coast Guard C-130 guy. George was his first name, and I can't think of his last name, but he's the captain on this thing. And the FO is descending into Memphis in a DC-10 at about 340, 350. George's like, they came out yesterday with that FCIF. They want us to do 290. So he goes, well, when it's your leg, you can do that.
Wow.
George wisely said, they're actually all my legs. And if you want to keep flying, you will do 290.
Wow.
Yeah.
The balls.
Yeah, right?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
probably the lack of judgment as well,
Yeah.
and self-awareness. And I could keep going.
That's the big
Isn't
one.
it funny,
Self-awareness.
guys? Some of the captains you've flown with, like I remember I was an FO. I always thought, because in the military, I never saw any pilot have an outburst, at least in the airplane around the flying environment. Maybe in the O Club, guys getting fight or whatever, but that was just blowing off steam. Totally shocked me the first time I saw this captain blow up in the airplane. I mean, freaking, and you guys know who he is, or you know who he is.
Yeah.
He just wigged out in the jet, and I was like, holy shit, I didn't know guys did this in the airline world. It was just to see that happen a couple times. I saw it on the MD-11 a couple times. One guy took all of the checklists, on the side folder there that you put all the plasticine checklists in.
Mm-hmm.
He was looking for a checklist, I guess, couldn't find it. So there were like 6 or 7 of them. He got pissed off and he threw them into the cockpit. It just they just flew all around the cockpit. And we were going probably from Anchorage to Narita. He had this little temper tantrum. And then he looks at me, and I was reading a book. And he looks at me, and I looked at the checklist. I looked back at him. I said, I'm not picking them up.
Good for you.
He got up out of the seat, and he was just, I don't know. I guess everybody has their day. But anyway.
Yeah. Those were always fun. Yeah.
I'll tell you, I flew with some. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, you triggered a memory, and I'll tell the story if you want me to, but it's about this guy. Let's just say his name rhymed with Rudy Mapelli, and he was a check airman on the 737 back in the day. I was an FO, and he was kind of an odd dude. He didn't hang out on layovers. He was what we call a flame clicker, and he was just had kind of an odd personality, not very personable. But while we were flying, he carried this loose folder full of loose leaf paper, and back then we had what we call Channel 9, where the passengers could listen to air traffic control. Well, he would hijack Channel 9 and he would narrate stories. He'd open this folder up, and he would find something from history, and so I would listen in. He'd say, "You got the airplane in the radios," and then he'd open this folder up and he'd hijack Channel 9, and he'd be like, "Folks, if you look off to the left at about 10 o'clock and 30 miles, you'll see a rock. Well, back in 1872, there was a wagon." He'd go on and on. He'd do this all the way across the country, right? And so this was when the retirement age was still 60. Rudy's 59 and some change. And I'm flying with this dude for the whole month. And he finishes one of these spiels, and he puts the paper back in this loose thing, and he puts it back in his bag. We used to carry around big bags full of books back then. And I said, "Hey, Rudy, what are you going to do with that folder?" He called that folder his encyclopedia. And he didn't say anything. He just kind of looked at me, then he looked back outside. And I said, "Hey, Rudy, why don't you let me have it? And I will make a copy I will get it bound, and I'll give you back the original and a bound copy because this is up." And he goes, "No," and then he looked out the window, and I go, "Rudy, I'm gonna give it back. This is really cool. I think people should have this." And he said, "No," and he stared out the window for 10 minutes.
Oh, that's funny
Wow.
as shit.
But
There are some odd ducks out there, man.
Well,
I'll tell you what.
yeah.
Did he ever have, like, when
Nope.
before he retired? Did he? Go
I
on
think that
Channel
fucker
9?
took it to the grave, man. Because I mean, he was within 6 months of retiring then, and he
Oh,
was
that's
like,
funny.
yeah, he wouldn't even entertain the idea.
That is funny.
So early on in my flying experience with Rudy, he was a check airman. I wasn't getting OE. I was kind of a crusty FO at the time, and I was the pilot monitoring. And so as we're passing the last 1,000 feet, we're supposed to say 1,000 to go or whatever, right? And I said 1,000 to go, and he said no. The proper call is 8 for 9. And I went, "Okay, Rudy." So for the rest of the trip, no matter where we were,
I love it.
descending or when we had 1,000 feet to go, I'd say 8 for 9. He was so fucking pissed.
Flight level 340 for 350,
Yeah,
8 for
8
9.
for 9.
That gives me a chubby
That
fig.
is funny.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh, shit. The other day, Pete, you and I were talking about some story. We talked about in the cockpit with CRM and shit. And do you remember? Do you want me to tell you that British story that I told you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this is in my Substack. So if everyone wants to read it after this, but I was on a layover in Hong Kong. At the time I was on the MD-11. And I don't know why. I think I was given a line check, so I flew over there by myself to prepare for the next day to do a line check somewhere. So I'm in someplace else, which was below the Sheridan bar. There's a bar below there, and I was having a drink at the bar, and there were a bunch of flight attendants to my right, and a couple of cockpit crew, as I found out later. So they're Virgin Atlantic airline crew. His flight attendant says, "Oh, you don't need to drink by yourself. Come join us." So I did. And, typical Virgin has some smoking hot flight attendants. Sitting there.
New.
Yeah. They definitely had better standards than American carriers. But I digress.
Weird.
So we're talking. So they said, "Yeah, we're going out to eat Indian. You want to go?" And I said, "Yeah." So I wound up eventually coagulating and hanging out with the captain and the FO. And the captain, I guess because we're both captains, we're just telling captain stories and all this shit. So at dinner, I'm not going to tell you the story I told, but we got to talking about fixing airplanes while you're flying them. And I told him a story that was kind of stupid, and he kind of chuckled. I think it was he was just laughing for just my appreciation, not because of my story was funny. But he told me something I will never forget. And he swears this is true. And I believe him because I'm like looking him in the eye. So years before he got with Virgin, he was flying with British Caledonian he was a 737-200 first officer. And this is back before the Berlin Wall went down, and they had those 3 corridors. If anyone doesn't know, Berlin, when it was in East Germany, they had 3 air corridors that they used to fly into Berlin. And the top of it was 10,000 feet to the ground. So the airliners could fly, say, 30,000 feet as they approached the corridor, but then they had to descend. Once they crossed into East German airspace, they had to be at 10,000 feet or below.
Okay.
So Richard said they would normally go the high 20s, low 30s as they were flying towards one of the corridors to enter it. And at some point, they're starting their descent, and the captain says to Richard, "Turn on the radar. There might be some weather down below. There's some clouds below." So Richard turns it on. Radar doesn't come on. And Richard turns it off, turns it on again. Radar doesn't come on again. The captain says, "Richard, you got the airplane. I know how to fix this." So Richard's got the jet. He's got the radios. Captain takes out his trusty screwdriver that every pilot had at that point.
Oh yeah.
And he unscrews the 4 screws that bolted the radar to the front of the on the pedestal. It was just below the instruments and just in front of the throttles. So it was right there.
Yes.
So he undoes the screws, pulls the entire scope, the box out. And Richard said one thing he was shocked at, it was how long that unit was. He said it was like, shit, it was like 1.5 feet long. It was long.
Yes.
Captain pulls it out, undoes the screw that holds on
cannon
the
plug.
cannon plug.
Yeah.
So he's like, blows on the cannon plug, blows on the back of the box, and reconnects it, starts shoving it in. Well, the unit only goes halfway in and gets stuck. So the captain gets out of his seat and he literally stands with all his weight behind the pedestal, pushing on the radar scope to get it into the hole.
Oh, force it.
Instead of pulling it out,
what could possibly go wrong?
Forcing something in an
at
airplane.
first when it got, he's like pushing. So he said to Richard, he said, "Hey, push the throttles up." Well, they would only go 10%. I mean, that was it. They couldn't. They wouldn't. That was not going to be enough for level flight when they eventually had to level off at like 9,000 feet.
Oh no.
So,
Oh no.
the captain now is like kind of panicking, I guess.
So I'm guessing it's stuck in both directions now.
Yeah, it was. He couldn't pull it out.
And it was blocking the throttle movement, correct? Blocking the throttle movement.
Throttle, that was it. And so Richard's like, he says, because I was at the time, I was married to my British wife. I understood and I think we all understand the British personality. Richard said, "There's no talking during any of this. Richard's making the required radio calls, and the captain's not saying what he's going to do or not do. There was no communication at all. So finally, Richard's thinking, excuse my French, but we're fucked if you can't get this thing." So the captain's obviously realizing before Richard that they were fucked. So the next thing, the captain pulls out the crash axe and starts smashing the radar box. And he's hacking the death out of it. I mean, we're talking like, what was that chick that gave 40 whacks?
Lizzie Borden.
Yeah. Lizzie Borden. He said he just whacked the shit out of it. The radar imploded, the glass imploded, and Richard, again, no conversation. And the sound was so loud. He's thinking these flight attendants must be wondering what in the hell is going on up there. Well, at some point, he was able to get it loose. And he could actually, at this time, get it where it dropped all the way in. The glass is in. So it's in its place. Obviously not working.
How do you write that up?
So again, he says a typical British mentality. Not a word was spoken. Nothing. Just all the necessary information to operate the airplane safely into Berlin. So they go in and the captain takes the airplane back. They land. And as they're taxiing in, the captain hands the first officer, Richard, the logbook and says, "Hey, could you write that up?" And Richard's like, what the hell? So he's got the logbook in his lap the entire time they're taxiing in. They get to the blocks, and the captain says to him, Richard says when they got to the box, Richard goes, I don't know how to write this up, sir. And the captain goes, right. It's my responsibility. I'm the captain. Not that I destroyed it, but I'm the captain. So the captain takes the logbook, and now they're deplaning. And Richard's like, I'm getting out of this cockpit. So he gets up and gets out, waving goodbye to the passengers. They all get off. Flight attendants gather, and they're doing a turn there, not laying over. So flight attendants get off the airplane. They all start going into ops. And then Richard says the captain eventually, a minute later, he joins them after all the passengers are gone. And Richard's like dying. He's got to know, what the hell did the captain write up? How do you write that up?
Yeah.
Like, I destroyed a fucking radar.
We just flying along and all of a sudden it broke. Huh, weird.
So Richard's like, okay, he goes, so they get down the steps, and Richard says to the captain, he feigns like, oh, I left something in the cockpit. I got to go check it out. Well, he wants to read the logbook.
Yeah.
So he gets up, gets in the cockpit, opens the logbook, and the captain wrote radar in op.
Of course.
we're just like,
And he was not wrong.
It's accurate. The radar is an op.
and they flew that airplane with that radar MEL'd back to Gatwick. And Rich is like, it was funny because that broken radar is like staring at him like it's evil and it wants to kill them both. Oh God, I thought
That's
You
awesome.
called it, Dizzy. Oh man, holy
funny
shit!
stories.
Hey, real quick, funny story on. I used to carry in the logbook those grape sheets are serialized, and so if one's missing, it's like, oh crap, where did it go? Or it has to say void or something like that. But
it's like a check in a checkbook.
It's a way of keeping track so that some write up doesn't get disappeared, and and that's a safety issue. Everything that's written up has to be documented on that airframe. So I used to carry those extra green sheets with me for the write-ups, and every now and then. I'm surprised I never did it to you, Roger, although I don't know that we flew together, captain and first officer, more than once ever, but I would carry those extra with me. If a guy had a hard landing or something, I'd fill one out. Hard landing aircraft needs inspection. And then after blocking, I'd hand the logbook to the captain with that green sheet in it. He goes, that wasn't a hard landing. Son of a bitch. Now I got and then I'd go, oh, if you're sure. And I'd rip it in half and throw it in the trash. You can't throw that in the trash. That's serialized. It's like, dude, check the number on it. I'm just messing with you.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, you're mean, dude.
Yeah, you know.
You're fucking mean. You got a mean
Have some
streak.
fun. Yeah. Yeah, as Dizzy says, ignore the axe mark. Radar or not, ignore the axe marks.
Yeah,
That may be a show title. Ignore the axe marks. I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, the funny thing, I got funny stories from being the Brits. When I was over there, my father-in-law, when I was married to my British wife, Len was a funny as shit guy. He was a pharmaceutical rep for Bayer. But one night I met this guy who used to fly in the RAF back in after the war, and he told me this story that, again, I will never forget. Kind of like the one with the radar story. So he said there was a vampire pilot, and the British vampire. You remember those jets, single engine?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, ugly as shit airplane, but I guess it was built pretty strongly. So there's a RAF pilot, and this is after the war just ended. Britain had gotten like 1/3 of Germany, the northwest part, the northern part, and they were flying out of some of the airports. They had their army up there, soldiers and all that. So there's this vampire pilot who was tasked to go find. He was flying a low level, and he was supposed to go find a regiment to fake bomb. Like it was they see how alert they were, or something like that. I don't know. So the guy's lost, and it's kind of hazy. In the Brits, as you guys know, I mean, they fly low levels like they're on the highway. I mean, they fly freaking low.
Right.
It's and they do it just as if they could be smoking a cigarette and reading. But he's flying this vampire, wide open throttle, lost. Looking at his map, trying to get a clue. There you go, perfect picture of vampire.
I put a picture of the vampire up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So he's flying low. He's looking around. Now, northern Germany back then, I guess, didn't have a lot of trees. It said it was a lot of farmland, so just not a lot of trees to worry about. So at one point, he looks up and he said, like, the only freaking tree in northern Germany is in front of him, and he hit it.
Oh, shit.
He flew right through it. Now, evidently, the vampire is built like a brick shit house. Flew right through it, and he said he even ducked because he thought it was going to the plexiglass was going to break. Flew right through it. The airplane was flyable. Engine was running. Nothing. I mean, nothing was wrong. So he flies back to base, and I guess what he didn't know is he brought a lot of branches with him. So the mechanics on the ramp were laughing their asses off, thinking that he thought he camouflaged his airplane to go hide it. So he taxis into the hangar, and obviously, the assistant base ops commander was there. The base ops commander was gone on a trip or something. So the assistant base ops commander started reading him the riot act, And this happened on like Tuesday. And he said, well, for punishment, now the airplane, mind you, he said was minimally damaged, which I'm like, jeez. And he hit it he hit this tree at 400 knots. But he said it was minimally damaged, just some, sheet metal work they had to do. So, but the assistant base commander said, I think for punishment, you got to go with all the other miscreants this week. And on Friday, early morning, you got to go in on a truck into the local town where the infirmary is for all the military personnel and do a goodwill tour of the hospital to, spread cheer to those guys. So this guy's thinking, this is perfect. They're having an Oktoberfest this weekend, and I'm going to be the first one there out of everybody on the base. So early morning, 8 o'clock, they all saddle up and they go down to this hospital, and he's going room to room to room and spreading goodwill and good cheer. And he said finally around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he said, I've done enough of my goodwill tour. And he starts hoofing it for an exit to go out of the hospital to go into the town and start drinking his pints. As he's going by one room, though, he just glanced in and he slid to a stop because of what he saw. He came back after sliding and went into the room, and here's this guy in the bed. His left leg is up. You know how they raise their arms,
like in traction.
Right. In traction there.
Yeah, exactly. So his left leg is up. It's all got a cast on it. His right arm is up. He's bandaged. His head is like bandaged. One eye is, you can see with one eye, his mouth and nose you can see, but his left eye is bandaged. And he's smoking a cigarette, which blew me away. The guy's in bed, damaged like this, and he's sitting there smoking a cigarette. So the pilot looks at him and says, bloody hell, mate, what the hell happened to you? He goes, well, I'm an observer in the regiment, right? For the artillery, right? I'm sitting under the only fucking tree in northern Germany, and some asshole RAF guy flew through it and knocked it on me. What are the friggin' odds?
Whoa,
man.
I did not see that one coming.
That is a true story. I mean, it was, God.
I'm under the only tree. Oh, that's great. That is rich.
Yeah, that also is in my Substack stories. I got a lot of stories in there.
That's awesome.
I guess I wanted to regurgitate them before I croak, so they're left to posterity.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what we're all about here. We want to get stories down so they live on.
And these are excellent ones. So
yeah. The next story is coming out. I think you're going to be interested in, you guys. I'll let you know.
Okay.
What comes out. I don't know if you want to hear it now or
sure. Yeah.
Well, this is getting back to the CRM stuff. So I've had some issues over the years, as we all had. Fig, your story about the captain with this talking on Channel 9 is pretty funny.
Yeah.
But then no, I'm not going to tell you.
Nope.
So, like one thing that always amazed me was guys that would just wig out. And Pete and Fig, you guys are captains. You guys have dealt with, first officers. And I flew one time. So I'm on the MD-11, and it was, I guess it was probably early 2000s. It was Sunday. I was on reserve. It was December. And because we instructors were released to the line, I bid a reserve line. So I got a call Sunday afternoon. Hey, you're going to fly from Memphis to Salt Lake to Portland. And it was like a 6 p.m., maybe 5 p.m. departure. So I checked the weather before I left just to see what the weather is going to be like. Let me open the window here. Hang on.
Okay.
Can you guys see me okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. It got really dark on my screen. So anyway, I show up at the airport, and I'm going to let the first officer fly the first leg. It's going to be wicked bad snow going into Salt Lake, but Portland was going to be windy, low vis, possibly a Cat 3 approach. So I thought I'll let the FO fly the first leg. So I get to And we had these desks for everybody that doesn't know at our ops. We had these long desks, bar type. They didn't have chairs at them with computer terminals. So you could, check the weather, get your release and all that stuff back then, get it printed out. Well, as I pull up, because all the flights had left for the day and we were like the last flight out that afternoon, there was only one guy in there as a crew member. So I walked up to him and I said, are you going to Salt Lake? And he goes, yeah. And he had a folder in his hand and it was open. And he goes, yeah, I checked the weather. I printed the release. It looks good. He folds it up, slaps it down. He goes, I'm good to go. I'll be outside waiting for you. Never shook my hand, didn't even say hi. I mean, it was just like, okay, I see how this is going.
CRM.
So I opened the folder and I already knew the weather and the route of flight, wasn't a big deal. So I signed the release, dropped it off at the desk. I walk out there, we're on the crew bus. So we're on the crew bus going out to the airplane. And this guy, for some reason, looks at me and goes, oh, by the way, we're laying over at it was a deadhead the next day back on the airlines. He goes, we're laying over at the airport hotel. I said, no, we're actually laying over downtown. He goes, no, we're laying over the airport hotel. Yeah. I said, okay, you can lay over where you want, but I'm just telling you, scheduling told me we're laying over downtown because we normally didn't on a back end deadhead. So we get in the airplane, take off, flying along, and everything with this guy was just difficult. I mean, just freaking difficult. And he would be
at least
leading...
you appreciate not saying my name, Roger. I just,
so I'm like, I'm from Jersey. I can get an attitude. And I'm getting a slow burn in me now. I'm thinking, this guy's such a dick. So as we get through 18,000 feet, and I don't know, you figure with United, is that you fly?
Bead window.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
I'll take that out.
We're flying out at 18,000 feet. You have an overhead light in the MD-11, but you also have two spotlights that shine down. So if you want to read, not have the light on in the cockpit, which some
you turn your own map light on there.
Yeah. So some captain, yeah. So I would normally, unless the FO wanted the light on, or the big light, I would usually leave it off and use my little light because I didn't, looking out too, when you turn that big light on, you make the windows opaque to the outside. Well, we hit 18,000 feet. This asshole reaches over, flips the cockpit light on.
Okay.
And he pulls out a book. He's, I've got to study. And he drops his seat back. And he's flying, but he tilts his seat back and starts to study. And I'm like, oh, I guess we're going to read now. So now I'm like, okay, another one. And
strike you.
And so at some point he got tired of reading. So he reaches up, boom, kills the light. And I was actually reading a book I was reading. So I said, oh, I guess we're not reading anymore. So I had my light on, so I continued to read. How am I going to approach this asshole when we get to Salt Lake? I didn't want to start anything there, but I did ask him. I always get curious about the people I fly with, and I always want to get into their life. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? Blah, blah, blah. If they don't want to talk, they don't have to. Sure. But I'm just kind of curious. I just like to get to know the people I'm flying with. Only thing I remember about this guy was he had been the base commander at Millington. He was I guess a Navy guy. Would have
been a Navy captain probably.
Okay, yeah. So and he was a captain. He retired as a captain, and he made the point to say, I was young at the time. I think I was maybe 41 or 42. I say young, compared to him, he was older than me. He goes, it really pisses me off that we get hired. I have all this time in the Navy, and I get hired, and I'm a first officer, and you're younger than me, and you're flying as a captain. I looked at him, I said, well, I guess you fucked up. I mean, what can I say?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, choices. It's all about choices.
Pissed him off. So we land, and it was snowing. I mean, it was probably about the heaviest snow I've ever flown in. We taxied to the blocks, shut down. The ramp agent comes up. She said, we're going to do a really quick unload and then load on you guys. So I'm like, that's fine. But at some point, and she said, we're going to de-ice you when the loading's complete, and we'll de-ice you in the blocks. So I said, oh, that's good. So anyway, we knew the plan for getting in and out. About 5 minutes after we got in, ground made a call on the radio. And they said, to all aircraft on this frequency that are planning to depart, the airport is now closed due to snow. We are plowing one runway, and they told us what it was. We're going to plow it. When the plowing is done and the airport's open, we will let you know. Repeat, we will let you know. We don't want any calls saying, when's the runway going to open? When's the airport going to open?
Yeah.
So just sit on your hats or whatever they said. So anyway, I took that as a don't call.
Yeah.
I
Geez.
shit you not, 5 minutes after that call, this dude, my first officer, picks up the mic. He's got it in his hand. I mean, he's about ready to push the button to speak. And I looked, I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm just going to call to see when the airport's going to open up. I said, put the mic down. And he looks at me. He goes, what? I said, put the fucking mic down now. And I mean, now he's like shocked. So he puts the mic down. And I proceeded to rip this guy a new asshole. I said, since I've met you, you've been a complete asshole. You act like you're the captain in the right seat, and it's pissing me off. And I said, I'll let somebody go to a certain limit, but now we've got two options on this flight right now. I said, one, we can cancel. I'll call the duty officer. We'll leave the airplane. We'll go to the hotel. We'll fly back to Memphis, and we'll do a mediated debrief. Or you can man up, be a professional, accept the fact that you're a first officer, and act like a professional, and we'll fly to Salt Lake. And once we get there, hopefully you and I will never see each other again. I said, which option do you want? He said, I think I can make Portland without any problem. And we did, pushed back, took off, climbed, went to Portland, and it was crappy. We wound up doing a Cat 3. It was 800 RVR. Wouldn't you know it? As soon as we got in the hotel van,
call crew scheduling.
Yeah, this guy goes to the driver. He says, what hotel are we going to? And the driver goes, oh, for some reason they want you guys downtown. And I was like, so he was like, no, that can't be right. So he calls scheduling, and obviously scheduling, I couldn't hear the conversation.
Never call crew scheduling on the road.
So he called, and it was, we went downtown, and I said to him as we checked into the hotel, I said, I am deviating on the deadhead tomorrow. I'm taking a later flight. I said, and I hope to God I never fly with you again. And that was our parting shot, and that was it.
Wow. Well.
Oh, man.
Hey, I think we've covered this at some point, but just to say we did, what is CRM?
Well, you want me to say crew resource management? It used to be called cockpit resource management. Now it's crew resource management. And it's basically just how you communicate. Aviation has an interesting, and just for people out there that may not know, aviation is very interesting in that you can fly with a different pilot or a different first officer, different captain, maybe every day of the month, maybe the entire year, never fly with that guy again.
Yeah.
So you're meeting each other. And in that meeting, the initial meeting particularly, you want to try to get a flavor for the other guy, his temperament, his personality. You want to have a common ground, common meeting area somewhere. At least that's the way I tried to do it.
Yeah. Has he had a fight with his dog? Has he gotten bitten by his wife?
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Is he going through a divorce? God knows I went through enough of those. So you basically find a common. Who's that guy that taught our CRM at FedEx? I can't remember his name. Mark something?
Oh, yeah.
A good guy. His CRM briefs I will never forget. He taught me so much about how to relate to to people in CRM. So anyway, it's
Different
just
personality types. We
Yeah.
love to call it charm school, but it was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. And by the way, interesting. You asked about, I work with the FAA now. I just actually did a 2-week Zoom course on AQP, and AQP, one of the fundamentals of it is CRM. It's a huge
Sure.
fundamental.
No, you just
And-
threw another acronym out. Would you define that, please, sir?
AQP.
Air crew, what the air quality, what the hell?
AQ qualification program.
There you go. Thank you. I knew it was something like that.
And
2 weeks of that.
It's an acronym. It's a three big words acronym, and it basically means train, and train to proficiency.
And train like you're going to fly. I mean, instead of the old N&O or Appendix F.
Yeah.
I remember on the transition when we went from Appendix F, which was the old N&O program, to the AQP. And as an evaluator, given type rates, the Appendix F, you were almost solo getting your type rating ride. Whereas you know how you guys are now, when you get the type ride now, you fly as a crew. And honestly, in retrospect, it is a better program. I do appreciate it.
I remember when it first came out, we all joked about it was no pilot left behind, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That was, hang on, I get
You getting any of my text messages?
Oh, you know what? I probably am. I'll double check that. I
I
had
had
my phone
a
on do not
100-pound Doberman just open the door.
Oh, all right.
But yeah, the FAA just has been interesting. I don't want to tell you why I went into this long involved story, but one thing I've told my younger son, particularly since he's in the civilian world as a CFII instructing. And Pete, you and I talked about the other day about kinder, gentler FAA. In about 2017, they said they needed to change, and that's where they really went head on into changing the whole, not to be so hard to evaluate. And I get reports from guys that may do something in one airline that I'm associated with, and with the ASAP program, which you both guys are familiar with, and your listeners don't know, but it's if a crew pilot makes a mistake, or the crew, they can turn into safety. Hey, I made this mistake. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. And this is why it happened. And it goes to ERC. And the ERC is made up of the FAA, one FAA guy, one management guy, and a union guy. And they evaluate that incident to see if it's forgivable, and if maybe some extra training needs to be given to the crew that might have made the mistake.
ERC stands for Event Review Committee.
Thank you.
Event Review Committee. Yep. And ASAP is Aviation Safety Action Program. So, which I was integral as the union rep, as we put that in.
That's right. You were, I forgot, Pete. You did that.
I was the safety chairman when we put that in. Yeah.
See, Pete, I don't know if you knew this though, and I don't think a lot of people do, but here's the interesting thing from the FAA side on that. When the ASAP comes out and it goes, the crew puts it in, it goes to you guys. Now it's automatically accepted. Before, you guys would accept or reject it, I guess, right away or something like that.
Right, yeah. And then they defaulted to accepting it unless you have to reject it.
Yeah, they're all automatically accepted in ASAP now. And then upon further review, if it seems that it was something worse, then it will get kicked up to a different level. But what a lot of guys don't know, and maybe your followers need to know this, pilots particularly, I get the reports. Now, I'm not on the ASAP committee. I am an aviation safety inspector. I also get the notification of the proposed, whatever the possible
remedial training or
and I mean, I do a separate independent study outside of the ASAP committee. And let's say the ASAP committee said, oh, this is nothing. We're going to just, slap your wrist and that's done. What if I discovered something that was more nefarious? I can actually, and I'm not that way. Me, I'm more lenient than I am the other way. Yeah. I could say, no, this might be possible enforcement. or certificate action. So it's a double-edged sword that I don't like. And I can tell you that in my office, all of us that are ASIs that are in ops, we
Mhm.
all just defer to the ASAP, and like whatever the ASAP says, we go with.
Right.
Because my dad always said a doctor and a lawyer can have bad days. A doctor can kill somebody and not get in trouble for it, and a lawyer can lose a case and not lose his job. But if a pilot fucks up, a lot of times that can be the last time before he could get his license taken away. So,
Yeah.
I'm not saying I've seen crews do some things that were interesting, but I also seen where the air traffic controllers tried to hang a crew when it was an ATC fault. And ATC, you can't, that's a dark hole there that we can't look into. So I don't know what happens with them.
Interesting.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah, and it took us a long time. It took us many years to get a letter of agreement that allowed our ASAP people to share with ATSAP, because every now and then weird shit would happen. People wouldn't fill out a safety report, but the air traffic controller, for instance, declared an emergency on behalf of one of our airplanes. And now all of a
yeah,
sudden they're chasing down the pilots going, what the hell's going on? And it, could have been a miscommunication. Someone said, we've got to open a door, meaning internal to the airplane. And ATC hears, well, you got a door open on our airplane, and they declare, and so it's nice in that sense. It brings it all back to good communication. But so an air safety inspector, what made you want to go to the dark side, Roger? I had to bust your balls.
well, I told you, Jim Searcy years ago when he interviewed me for my APD spot he was an FAA guy, and every APD has to be interviewed
And tell
by
folks
the
what an
FAA,
APD is. I'm sorry.
Aircrew Program Designee. Basically, civilian guys that get light airplane. It's like a DPE for the airlines.
Yeah, I am one on the 737.
Okay, well there you go. So yeah, but you know, but the thing with being an APD is it's a dual. You wear two hats. You work for your airline, but then when you're exercising in the position of that job, like type ride, new captain observations, for two instances, you're working for the FAA. So you got to keep that mentality so the FAA wants to interview. Well, Fig, you got interviewed, I assume, for your job, right?
Yeah.
By the FAA?
Yeah.
Okay. So the guy that interviewed me, Jim Searcy, he was kind of like a father type. He's like, Roger, he goes, we really need good guys like you when you retire to get in the FAA, because we got a lot of assholes here. And we need kinder, gentler. I mean, he said this is back in 2004. He said, we really need guys like you. So he goes, I'd really like you to promise me that you would consider that when you retire. And I'm like, okay, I'll promise to consider it. So I left it at that. But so I did that position on the triple and the MD-11. And then when I retired, Cindy, a friend of ours, pizza mine, she immediately went to the FAA, which shocked the hell out of me. And Cindy was an APD. And I was like, whoa, Cindy, I didn't see that coming. She said, Roger, we have to give back. We spent 35 years with our airlines in the aviation environment. We have to give back to the younger ones below us. And she meant the pilots, the aviation community.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh God, now I feel guilty because Jim Searcy's in my head.
Yeah,
so
right.
Anyway, I interviewed because of my being an APD. That helped. I got hired. And so here I am. And I've been 2 years doing it. It's a long learning process. I love the guys I work with. I am assigned to a GoJet airline, which is a feeder for United. And the guys I work with are awesome. They really are. I can't say enough. Just like flying, and on the airplanes we flew with, the crews we flew with, but yet we're, in offices,
Nice.
or we get to work at home too. We do situational telework and stuff. Yeah, it's
All right.
interesting.
Well, very
Oh,
cool. I'm glad to see guys like you doing FAA stuff because
me too.
that's important. And I think it was probably a little before we got ASAP at FedEx. I noticed a change in the FAA from let's pull their ticket to let's get it corrected.
yeah.
Let's find a way to fix this. Not let don't punish the guy that screwed up for screwing up. Find why he screwed up and fix it. So
Yep. No, I agree.
yeah. All right. Hey,
Now,
the other thing I'd
yeah.
like to do is chat a little bit about your Substack. How'd you get into writing that, and then talk about your book that's
So
that's coming out.
the Substack, um, I saw it online. It was brought to my attention. Um,
So you just always
and
liked writing, though? Is that the
well, it just came out that the lady who came out with Substack, she'd been um, a column writer for the New York Times, and she came out with it, and it's basically, it really is just a different way to get news articles.
sure?
Initially, it was more for writing, creative writing stuff, and that's what I started doing. I thought, I like to write. I don't I don't want to get into this like a pity party about writing, but when you write, somebody can say, "Oh, you write really well," and then somebody else can say, "You suck." And you have to kind of filter out which one is lying and which one's telling the truth. And sometimes you just can't figure it out. So Substack was a way for me to put stories out there. And if somebody wanted to read them, they could read them. And let me do backtrack here. I've always loved to read stories about flying, other people's stories. That
Sure.
Bob Buck wrote a story called North Star Over My Shoulder. I'm looking at it right now. Fate is the Hunter. It's in my library. There's another
Love that
book
book.
called,
Yeah.
yeah, called The Shepherd, which was another book I read. Aviation books, I think, are hard to find where they're just stories of flying. And I wanted to write something of my flying, but I wanted to me, it was all about the younger generation to read stories that I read when I was young. And I couldn't find those in the bookshelves. There might be one or two. Yeah, there's one book about some kid flying a Super Cub across the United States. I'm sure that's probably a great book. I wanted to hear more adventuresome flying, like different stuff. So I started my Substack with the idea I'm gonna just write my stories, throw them out there, and just see what sticks. What people say, comments, and does anybody like what are they good stories? Just to get their stories out in the world, and maybe somebody somewhere would be enlightened and love to read about the world outside of, maybe, who knows, maybe they're laid up in a hospital and they're paralyzed or something. I don't know.
Man.
So I just started writing I was digging back about all my life flying and all the different stories. And I've had people tell me so many times, God, you got good stories. You need to put them in a book and blah, blah,
There you
blah.
go.
So my Substack went out there. I actually wrote a book with a bunch of my Substack stories called Tales from the Sky. And that's got a lot of Substack stories in it. Not near as many. I was shocked. I haven't looked at it in a while, Pete. I was
Okay.
shocked at actually how many stories I have in there. Holy crap.
Nice.
There are a lot of stories in there and some are poignant. Um, people, some people dying and stuff like that. And some are funny
Yeah.
as hell, like the slow movers about this guy shooting. Well, I don't think it's funny to some people, but some guy shot a couple of cows with some Willie Pete rockets, but you'd have to read the story to find the humor in
More
that.
more
we have
dead.
we have a theme that keeps recurring on this show. It involves the butchering or the murdering of cattle with airplanes and ordnance.
Or other livestock. And we've had
Or
elephants
livestock,
too.
that's right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Water buffalo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was but anyway, so I got the Substack stories out there, and I've started writing another one that I'm going to put out pretty soon. And I would like to get more readers on it, just to find out, to read the stories, because I think they're really, at the very least, they're enlightening. But again,
Yeah.
I remember, if I wrote my first book, and I thought, shit, I'm the next Hemingway, and you go wah wah wah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not going to happen. So anyway, just modesty or no pride in the stories. They're just out there. So if anyone wants to read them, I hope they actually like them. You can pick and choose because they're different varieties.
No, they're awesome. And the one was the is it Flying Between Heaven and Hell? Was that the Christmas story about the Christmas flight home, or have I confused that with another?
Christmas Story is the one, the Angel of Christmas, and that's
Angel of Christmas. That was
yeah.
it. That was actually I recommended that a couple of years ago on another show that I do for people to use for. It was a nice Christmas story. Good.
So that was a deeply personal story that a lot of people don't realize, and it's kind of like it's like how I wanted my life to go, but it didn't go that way. So I was trying to tell other people, hey, evaluate what you have and be appreciative of what you do have, because once you get rid of it, you're going to wish you had it back. So I'll leave it at that.
Testify, brother. All right.
But my next, you want to know about my next book?
Yeah. That's exactly where I was going to go ask. Rachel and the Aviators, right? Totally
different field. So, Flying Between Heaven and Hell is a memoir. The other book, Tales from the Sky, is from my Substack, and they're actually true stories too.
Yeah.
Angel of Christmas, a very short book, on a F-16 guy flying from A to B over Christmas Eve and what happens there. The next book I've written, and it's done, is called Rachel and the Aviators, and it was honestly hard to write, extremely hard to write. It's fiction, it's espionage, action, adventure. It's long. It's 638 pages. And I know some people are like, oh my God. But before anyone gives me, the eye, they need to look at how long the Bourne books are. Some of those are over 700 pages. Hunt for Red October, I think, 700. And I'm not saying I'm as good as those authors, but if you have an involved plot, it does take a lot to get it, set it up, and get character development and all that.
So I take it there's not a lot of pictures.
No, well,
he doesn't want Marines to read it.
The picture on the front, Fig. I mean, there's probably some guys who buy the book just for the chick on the front.
Okay, you had me.
She is AI. She's AI, dude. So don't get too excited, but or maybe get more excited, whatever your flavor. But it starts out, Pete, you'll love this, in Cambridge at the Eagle Pub.
Okay, nice.
So starts out at the Eagle Pub, and it's basically Rachel she works for it's called the Phantom Group. They're an offshoot from the CIA. They're kind of like the CIA set them up because the CIA had too many moles. So the CIA leaders set the Phantom Group up to be kind of like his private small CIA, so they could go around and do more stuff without being too visible with the rest of the world. And the Phantom Group is very private, small, made up of a multinational group of people. So Rachel she was raised by a SEAL father, and he was in the group after he left the SEALs. He got in the Phantom Group, and he raised her and taught her skills. And then after college, she joined the group. But you don't join it, you're asked to be in it.
Yeah.
So she was over in Europe in the Cambridge, in the Eagle. She was there they were following an Air Force colonel who was selling secrets to the Russians. And they could never catch him red-handed. They knew it was him, but they could never catch him to where there was enough evidence that would hold him in court. So it starts out with a really good chase scene over there in Cambridge, and then that ends a certain way, and then you go 5 years down the road, and then you open up again with a guy in a boat who is going across the Great Bay. And this is where I grew up in South Jersey. and he's taken his 24-foot console boat, takes it to this real island called Pullman Island. It's a small deserted island on the Jersey coast. And he walks around the island, and he's, he's got tears in his eyes. He's really sad. And so he gets back in his boat, and he's in this cove. He drops something in the cove with a float attached to it, and he sends a text. Object is in the agreed place. And there's a storm coming, early tropical storm coming, and a nor'easter, you could call it that too. Anyway, it fetches off the coast of South Jersey for a while, totally whips up the waves. And this guy, by the way, when he drops that thing off in the cove, he goes out into the inlet, takes his boat up, and then he falls out over the boat into the waves, and he disappears. So he commits suicide, and then the waves really beat the shit out of that island. And about 3 days later, Rachel is on the island. She's actually scuba diving in the cove because she and her operation had intercepted messages that this guy had developed this really advanced jamming / radar invisibility device, and he was selling it to the Soviets, and he dropped it in this cove. So Rachel was in the cove diving because she wanted to pick it up, obviously for the free world. And the Russians were there too at the same time. She saw them. And in fact, one of the Russians that she saw was the same Russian that she saw on her first mission 5 years earlier in Cambridge. And then the whole book goes from there, because then there's that island. There's these 3 aviators. They're banner pilots, which is what I used to do when I was in college for my summer years. And the banner pilots would, at the end of their banner towing day, they would go over the island. They'd play Follow the Leader and, do all kinds of play
Tail
games.
Chase, grab ass in an airplane.
Yeah. Just pretend.
You never did any of that, though, did you?
Nah, never. Never took down kites with my airplane.
Yeah.
But anyway, what goes on is, while Rachel is looking at this, trying to find this item that was dropped in the cove, one of the banner pilots sees a big boat docked in the cove at this island. And this is a true story. This island had what they called lifeguard saving stations, where the Jersey coast, at different places, they would have these life-saving stations, because sometimes boats would wash up, and then these guys would go out and try to rescue the people on the boats. So there was this old lifeguard saving station there, and it was in the cove, and there was a big boat docked up to the dock there. And one of the banner pilots, his name is Guido, he's like, "Hey, what the hell is that? We never saw boats in this island before." And then that goes into, so there's a couple different threads that go on in this book where they interweave, and Guido and Rachel, become, intertwined as far as helping each other and not helping each other. And then it winds up into one big culmination, I don't know.
Well, that's fantastic. So I got to read, and you've changed it substantially since then, obviously, because it didn't, I don't recall it starting out in the Eagle Pub back in the first variant, but it was it was very intricate, but it was very engaging, very good action adventure, thriller, in the relationship intertwining was really good. So when can we pre-order it?
It's funny. I just talked to Shiloh today that it's at the typeset. She had a question that I missed in the email. The book is actually a typeset. It's done. She just wants confirmation on one thing that she did. Okay. It's probably going to come out. It's going to be put on, Kindle, Amazon.
Yeah.
Probably by the middle to the end of November. And I'll let you know. You're not, one thing I do want to say.
Yeah, show notes for this episode as well, once that happens, and mention it on one of the pre.
But, I will be giving out free copies of the book. Obviously you two are going to get it, and I'd like to kind of give to some FedEx guys. No offense, Fig, but
None taken.
Yeah.
None taken.
Yeah.
But
Maybe we could do it as one of our monthly giveaways. We haven't done one, I don't think, since August, July or August. That'd be fun.
Okay.
Give a couple copies away for that. But
Yeah.
All right.
But-
Well, we've been going about 90 minutes here, so sadly, it's time for us to land the airplane. Roger, let me first say, I'm sorry, Jedi. Let me first say thank you for your service and your continued service. You're still doing it with the FAA. Gave you some grief about being the dark side, but that's
right.
essential work that needs to be done, and it's pretty hard and thankless work from my perspective. But thank you also to all the active duty and the veterans and the first responders, and also let's be sure to thank their families who make the sacrifices that allow them to do that job. That's a big deal.
How about a big thanks to Dave Hamilton at backbeatmedia.com.
Yeah, absolutely. David gave us knowledge and
Gives knowledge, bandwidth, gets its advertisers. And,
absolutely.
And he's like our big toe.
There you go. Our big toe. Sergeant Holka, Dave Hamilton, our big toe. And thanks to all our donors. So there I was.us/Patreon or so there I was.us/donate. All of you people who have lost complete sense of any financial responsibility, cracked your wallet and thrown money at us, we are deeply humbled. We don't know what to say, but thank you. It's inadequate, but
We're
thank
scratching our heads at your judgment, but by golly, we sure appreciative. So thank you. Yes,
That's funny.
Yeah.
Special. Hey, we have a merch store. Don't forget. So there I was. .us/merch. That's right.
Yeah.
Koozies, hats, mugs, and
Bikini.
Yes.
How much is
And
free?
it is bikini season in South America, so we're wrapping up bikini season here in North America. But hey, you always need a bikini. Anyway,
Exactly.
if we don't, if it's not made, we don't have it because we pretty much have everything.
Yeah, we got a lot of cool stuff there. So, in fact,
That's cool.
if you're looking at me, I'm wearing the hoodie. Love the hoodie and the hat today.
It's hoodie
So,
season, North America.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, could you also wander over to sotherewas.us/rate and follow the links there to give us a 5-star rating, please? We would really appreciate it. If you have to give a 3-star rating, go find another show or write to us and tell us what it is we're doing wrong that's getting us 3 stars, because we're trainable and we can fix it. And
Yeah, we're totally trainable. We're like the AQP of podcasters.
there you go.
We just train until we get it right?
No podcaster left behind.
We would be remiss if we didn't thank Bago and Sticks, who are tardy today, but they're here almost every day with us, and they do a lot in the background. Badass, that's BDS Aviation, for lending us all the beautiful pictures.
Yeah, BDSAviationPhotography.com.
What the hell's that noise?
Hang on. Is that
wait.
one or two? It's two. It's dos. That's the two white guys. Dos gringos, the two Air Force F-16 pilots that make the Air Force sound good. They're generous enough to let us use their music for our theme song. Weird.
Yeah.
Just super lucky.
They're fine Americans. They made
They
great
are.
music. 4 albums. There's not a bad song on any.
No.
If you're having a bad day, you should listen to one of those and laugh.
There you go. Any advice until next week, Fig?
Well, don't trust the FAA. No, don't. It's a kinder, gentler FAA. So maybe don't look down on the FAA.
There you
I don't know.
How about don't eat yellow snow? I don't know.
There you go.
Okay, I like that too.
Till next week, stay safe and check 6.
Yes.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
You heard him, Fig. He said it.
He said
That's
it's
good. That's funny.
I blame society.
And we
over. Of course you do.
Awesome. All right, guys. Sadly,
Yes.
I have a hard out here in about 17 minutes. I've got somewhere that I need to start heading towards. So,
No worries.
Jedi, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you,
I
Jedi.
appreciate it again. I enjoyed this.
got-
I was a lot more comfortable this time than last time.
Good.
For
Hopefully,
the third time, you're going to be even better.
right?
The third time's the
'Cause
charm.
I know
man.
you got a lot more stories. We'll pull them in. Those are
I'll
fantastic
tell you what.
stories.
Pete, I'll
Oh,
send
hang
you
on. Hang on. Here's what we're going to do. I've got just time for this. Everybody, I'm going to end the stream. We're going to do our extra and say thank you to all of those who support us that way. Here we go.